What if the sandwich you gave away today revealed the truth about who you really are? In a forgotten corner of the city, an 8-year-old girl hands her only lunch to a man everyone else ignores. She sees him as hungry. What she doesn't see is that he's a billionaire in disguise, and that single moment will unravel everything she thought she knew about her family, her past, and even her name. This is a story where kindness becomes the key to a buried identity, and the smallest act sparks a revelation that could destroy or save a family. And just wait until you discover why the billionaire was sitting there in the first place. If this story moved you even a little, imagine how many hearts it could reach. Drop a comment below telling us, would you give your only sandwich to a stranger? Subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories like this, where compassion isn't just powerful, it's life-changing. And don't forget to share this with someone who still believes that kindness matters. Because sometimes a peanut butter sandwich is more than just lunch, it's destiny. The light flickered above the cracked kitchen ceiling of the Riverside Heights apartment as 8-year-old Maya Elridge sat at the table, legs swinging beneath her mismatched chair. Her mother's overnight scrubs hung from a wall hook like a tired ghost, still damp with the scent of antiseptic. Peanut butter, no jelly, diagonal cut crust off, just how you like it, Elena said softly, wrapping the sandwich in a napkin and sliding it into Maya's lunch pouch. Thanks, Mom, Maya said, her smile wide but her eyes a little tired. Elena brushed a tight curl from her daughter's face and crouched to eye level. You know the rules. No talking to strangers. Don't stray from the school path, and if the crossing light blinks, wait on the sidewalk. I know. Maya gave a mock salute. I'm not a baby. No, Elena sighed. You're a miracle. Now go be careful, okay? I have a double today, but Mrs. Kemp will check. In before bedtime? Maya nodded, grabbing her backpack. Love you, Mama. Love you more, Starlight. The apartment door clicked shut behind her, leaving Elena staring into the half-lit space where Maya's drawings covered every crack in the paint. She poured herself instant coffee, cold before the second sip, and reached for her worn sneakers. Another shift, another prayer that she could make rent and keep the lights on. The chill bit at Maya's fingers as she skipped down the cracked sidewalk. Leaves clung to the curb like tired secrets. In her backpack, the sandwich sat safe, waiting for lunch. She hummed quietly to herself, a song from music class about stars and wishes. As she neared the corner of Maple Street, she slowed. A man sat hunched near the bus stop bench, not on it, but against it. His beard was silver and wild, his coat was too thin, and his hands were red from the cold. Most people passed him without a glance. Some turned away entirely, but Maya paused, hugging, her backpack tighter. She inched forward. Excuse me, sir. He didn't look up. She tried again, softer. Are you hungry? His head lifted just slightly. His eyes startled her, not because they were cold, but because they weren't. They were vivid, painfully blue, filled with something heavy. Yes, he rasped, almost surprised by the sound of his own voice. Maya nodded, reached into her backpack, and pulled out the sandwich. Here, my mom says protein helps in cold weather. The man blinked. That's your lunch. It's okay, Monday's a spaghetti day at school. We get hot lunch. He hesitated, then took it gently. Thank you, he whispered. I don't remember the last time someone looked at me like I mattered. You do, Maya said simply, and then continued on her way, skipping again. The man stared after her until she turned the corner. Then, with shaking hands, he unwrapped the sandwich like it was made of gold. Back at the bench, Graham Whitlock wiped a tear from his cheek and stared at the empty wrapper in his hand. He hadn't planned to stay out here long that morning. This empathy immersion, as his advisors called it, was supposed to end yesterday. But something had kept him here, something missing, until that little girl. He reached into the pocket of his tattered coat and pulled out a burner phone. James, he said when the line picked up. It's me. Sir, came the brisk reply, startled. Where have you? Listen to me, Graham said. I need you to find A girl, 8, maybe 9, brown skin, tight curls, bright eyes, lives near Maple Street. Find out everything, who she is, who her parents are, and James, yes? Make this your top priority. 3 days later, the heater sputtered in the Elridge apartment as Maya and Elena sat down to dinner. Macaroni and cheese again, this time with a bit of chopped hot dog stirred in. A feast compared to some nights. Today we learned about constellations, Maya said between bites. My teacher said Orion's. Belt points to a star that sailors used to follow. Elena smiled. Maybe you'll be a sailor someday. Nah, Maya said. I don't like fish. A knock at the door startled both of them. Elena frowned. It was after 8 p.m. Stay here, she said, wiping her hands and moving cautiously toward the door. Through the peephole, she saw a man in a dark grey suit, clean-cut, polished, and entirely out of place. Who is it? James Abbott, the man said. Legal counsel for Mr. Graham Whitlock. I'd like 5 minutes of your time. The name rang a faint bell, but Elena couldn't place it. Wariness crept into her voice. How do you know my name? My daughter's name? Ma'am, I understand your concern. May I slip my card under the door? She hesitated. The card came through, heavier than expected, embossed, legitimate. With one hand still near her phone, she unlatched the door chain and opened it just wide enough to see his face. You have 5 minutes, she said sharply. Speak. James stepped inside. With practiced care, as if aware he was treading into hallowed space. His gaze flicked to the coloring pages on the wall, to the battered furniture and the warmth that lived here despite it all. Miss Elridge, he began. 3 days ago, your daughter offered her lunch to a man she believed was homeless. Elena stiffened. That man was my employer, Graham Whitlock. Maya's eyes widened. The sandwich man? James nodded. Mr. Whitlock is not what he appeared. He's the founder and CEO of Whitlock Technologies, estimated net worth. I know who he is now, Elena interrupted, stunned. He was moved by your daughter's kindness in a way I've never seen. He asked me to find you because he wishes to help. Help how? James opened a sleek leather folder and slid it across the table. A full educational trust for Maya, private schooling, all expenses paid through college, and a position for you at the Reynolds Medical Foundation. Better hours, better pay, benefits, stability. Eleanor stared at the papers, unread. Why us? She whispered. James glanced at Maya. Because your daughter did something no one else has. She saw a man with nothing and gave without expecting anything in return. The room was silent. After a moment, Elena reached for the folder. I don't make decisions in 5 minutes. Of course, James replied. Take all the time you need. But please, consider that this may be more than charity. It may be fate. He let himself out, the door shutting quietly. Behind him, Maya looked up at her mom, voice barely above a whisper. Was it a good thing, Mom? What I did? Elena reached across the table and held her hand tightly. I don't know yet, baby, she said, but it was a kind thing. And sometimes, that's what changes everything. Elena lay awake, her body heavy with exhaustion, but her mind refusing to rest. The apartment was dark and still. Beside her, Maya slept soundly. One small hand curled around a crumpled piece of paper, a drawing of a star. With "Wish Big" scrawled across it in glitter gel, the folder from James Abbott sat unopened on the kitchen table. Elena rubbed her forehead, the shadows under her eyes deep as bruises. She'd seen plenty of so-called generous offers before. They always came with a price, power over, not partnership with. Her instincts screamed caution, but her heart ached at the thought of what this could mean for Maya. A real education, safety, a life not built on stretch-thin paychecks and second-hand coats. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She slid quietly from the bed, brewed coffee stronger than motor oil, and sat down with her laptop. If Graham Whitlock thought he could win her over with charity, she would see through him. The internet yielded articles, profiles, interviews, tech genius, reclusive billionaire, fierce philanthropist. His face stared back from conference stages and stock announcements, clean-shaven, sharp-suited, untouchable. Then she found it, a 10-year-old article tucked into an archive, its headline blurred but legible. Whitlock's family tragedy, daughter Emily dead at 2, wife's suicide follows. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She clicked. The piece told of a sudden illness, a late diagnosis, a frantic medical transfer to a private hospital that ended in loss. The wife, Caroline, had written a note, blamed his absence, his work, his silence. Elena leaned back, heart hammering. This man had buried a daughter, and now he was drawn to hers. She stared across the room at Maya's tiny shoes lined by the door, her little drawings fluttering in the breeze of the heater. Was he trying to replace someone he lost? Was Maya just a mirror? Later that week, Eleanor received a text from James. Mr. Whitlock would like to meet with you personally. Reynolds Memorial Garden, noon. She almost deleted it, but curiosity gnawed at her deeper than fear. She asked Mrs. Kemp to walk Maya home from school and took the train across the city, riding in silence. The Reynolds Memorial Garden was nearly empty. Marble plaques lined the walkways, bearing the names of lost children. At its center, a small fountain trickled over a ring of stone engraved with words, "Gone too soon, loved always." Graham was already there. No beard, no disguise. Just a tall man in a dark wool coat, silver hair brushing his collar, eyes trained on the water. "You picked quite the meeting spot," Elena said as she approached. Graham turned. It seemed appropriate. They sat on opposite ends of the bench. "I've seen your file," she said. "I know about Emily." He didn't flinch. "Then you understand why this isn't about pity or guilt. It's about honoring what matters. And you think that's my daughter." "I think," he said slowly, "that your daughter reminded me what I'd forgotten. That kindness can be pure, that love doesn't always come with conditions, that maybe I still have something left to give." She stared at him, searching his face. "You're not used to people saying no to you, are you?" "No," he admitted, "but I respect when they do." Eleanor stood. "Then respect this. I don't want charity. I won't trade my child's stability for your redemption." "I'm not asking you to," he replied, standing too. "I'm offering a partnership, one with no strings. You set the terms." They met again 2 days later, this time in a modest cafe near Elena's hospital. James joined them briefly, then left with a nod. Elena arrived with a printed list, typed, bullet-pointed, precise. "I've thought about your offer," she began. "If I'm going to accept anything, it will be under these conditions." She slid the paper across the table. Graham read, "Maya attends Westbrook Academy, but on a scholarship, not a personal gift. Elena accepts a position at the Reynolds Medical Foundation, but on standard salary, no inflated title. She'll earn promotions on merit, no unsupervised contact with Maya until a foundation of trust is built. All interactions to include Elena or a designated adult she approves. Any public involvement with Maya, press, philanthropy, events must have written consent. If Maya ever expresses discomfort or fear, all involvement ceases immediately." Graham looked up. "You're thorough. I'm a mother. I agree to all of it." "You do? I admire your clarity. You're protecting your daughter. That tells me I'm dealing with someone who values what really matters." Eleanor folded her hands. "This doesn't mean I trust you yet." "You shouldn't," he said honestly. "Not yet." That night, Eleanor returned to the apartment with a heaviness in her limbs, but something like hope in her chest. Maya was sprawled on the floor, surrounded by crayons and a new drawing, this one of a big school with vines and banners. "Is that Westbrook?" Eleanor asked. Maya nodded. "I looked it up online. They have science clubs and an art studio and even therapy dogs." Eleanor knelt beside her. "What if you could go there?" Maya blinked. "For real? It would mean a new schedule. I'd have a different job, better hours, better pay. We'd stay in this apartment for now, but some things would change." Maya considered that, then quietly asked, "Would you still pick me up from school?" "Every day," Elena said. "Then I think it would be okay." Elena brushed a tear from her cheek and pulled her daughter close. "You're braver than I'll ever be," Maya giggled. "Nah, I just like dogs." As the stars blinked to life outside the window, Elena rose and retrieved the folder from the kitchen table. She placed her signature beside Graham Whitlock's. The bridge had been built, cautiously, deliberately, but it had been built, and tomorrow they'd take their first step across it. Maya stood in front of the brick and ivy-covered entrance of Westbrook Academy, gripping the straps of her new backpack so tightly her knuckles went white. The other kids were buzzing with laughter, wearing pressed uniforms and confident smiles. Maya glanced down at her shoes. They were polished, but still the same ones she'd worn at her old school. Her plaid skirt didn't quite match the rest, hand-altered to fit. "Just remember what we talked about," Eleanor said beside her, crouching to fix one of Maya's braids. "You belong here just as much as anyone." Maya nodded, but didn't look up. A voice called from across the yard. "Maya Elridge?" They turned to see a tall woman with salt and pepper hair and warm, intelligent eyes. "I'm Mrs. Blackwell. Welcome to Westbrook." Maya managed a small smile. Inside the school, it felt like another world. High ceilings, colorful art displays, lockers with nameplates. Maya was introduced to her class, placed beside a quiet boy named Theo, and handed her orientation packet. As she opened her notebook, she caught a girl whispering, "She's the one from the news story, the scholarship kid." Maya's stomach twisted, but later that day, she held the door open for a boy who'd dropped his books. And before the end of the week, she had 2 new friends, a lunch table spot, and a reputation for drawing the best space cats anyone had ever seen. Elena smoothed her new hospital ID badge between her fingers as she entered the Reynolds Medical Foundation for her first day. The lobby gleamed. Receptionists in tailored uniforms smiled as they directed patients to pediatric units, therapy wings, and family counseling centers. It was a far cry from the crowded emergency rooms Eleanor was used to. Her position, nursing coordinator for community health initiatives, meant she reported directly to a senior administrator named Camilla Voss. Camilla greeted her with a firm handshake and raised eyebrows. "Your resume's solid," she said, "but most of our hires don't come through Graham Whitlock's personal recommendations." "I'm aware," Eleanor replied evenly. "Prove to me you're here on merit, not mercy." "Gladly." By the second week, Eleanor had streamlined 2 outdated triage procedures and implemented a weekend wellness survey that significantly reduced wait times in the children's wing. At the end of the month, Camilla handed her a mug that read, "The Quiet Fixer." Eleanor laughed for the first time in weeks. She was exhausted, but respected, and it felt good. They met Graham again for dinner, 2 weeks into the new routine, at a cozy Italian place, not his penthouse. He insisted on somewhere casual, so Maya doesn't think adults only eat food that sounds like furniture polish. Maya giggled over her fettuccine. Elena was wary at first, but as Graham asked about school, Maya lit up. "We're learning about constellations. I drew a dragon-shaped galaxy." Graham smiled. "Did you name it?" "Of course, it's called Coraja Major." He laughed. "That's better than anything NASA's done." Elena studied him closely. He asked questions but never pressed. He listened. He laughed. Not the cold, rehearsed laughter of a man giving interviews, but the real kind. The kind that sounded like it hadn't been used in years. After dinner, Graham walked them to their car. "Same. On time next week. We'll see," Elena said carefully, but Maya squeezed his hand and nodded. In the rearview mirror, Elena caught her daughter looking up at the stars. "Mom," she said, "he's not so sad anymore." Graham stood alone in his penthouse the next evening, the lights of the city flickering far below. He poured himself a drink, untouched, and walked to the bookshelf where a worn leather album rested. He flipped it open. There was Emily, his daughter. Her curls were tighter than Maya's, but the smile, the way she tilted her head when she concentrated, it was too familiar to dismiss. On the next page, a picture of her coloring on the floor. Graham's breath caught. Maya had done the same thing last week during dinner. Same posture, same intense focus, same universe in her eyes. He set the album down. It couldn't be. It was impossible. Yet something inside him, an ache he hadn't dared name, was whispering otherwise. He called James. "I need access to the hospital records from Emily's. Transfer, the private clinic, all of it." James's tone sharpened. "You really think—" "I don't know," Graham said, "but I have to." James arrived at the penthouse 3 days later, a secure folder under his arm. "They stonewalled me," he said, setting it on the table. "But I pulled what I could. There's something odd. No discharge records, no death certificate signed on site. The clinic shut down 3 months later." Graham's heart pounded. "Find out who was there. Doctors, nurses, anyone." "And then?" Graham hesitated. "We need a test." James straightened. "A DNA test." "Yes, quietly, I want to be sure, before I destroy what they've built." James nodded, then asked more softly, "And if it's true?" "I don't know," Graham whispered, "but I think she's my daughter." From the corner of the room, sunlight spilled across a drawing Maya had given him, a stick-figure version of the three of them under a tree, holding ice cream. Graham picked it up like it was glass, and for the first time in 10 years, he allowed himself to hope. The test came back in a plain manila envelope. Graham didn't open it right away. It sat untouched on his penthouse kitchen counter for hours, like a silent bomb waiting to detonate. He paced the room, palms sweating. Finally, with trembling fingers, he broke the seal and unfolded the document. 99.98% probability of biological paternity. Subject A, Maya Elridge. Subject B, Graham Whitlock. His knees gave out. He collapsed into a chair, pressing a hand over his mouth. He read the words again and again, hoping they'd change, that it was a mistake. But it wasn't. Maya was his daughter, Emily. Somehow, against logic, against time, she was alive. He should have felt joy, relief. But all he felt was the weight of a terrible question. How had this happened? And who had let it happen? And worse, how could he tell Elena without shattering her world? Elena noticed the shift immediately. Graham cancelled their next dinner. He sent no message to Maya, no follow-up call to her new school. He became quiet, distant. That's when her instincts kicked in. She took a sick day, the first in years, and made a call to the woman who had once helped process Maya's private adoption, an old co-worker who'd since retired to Florida. "Cynthia," she said carefully, "back when I took Maya in, there were things that didn't add up. I let it go. But now, I need everything. Who referred me? What agency handled the case?" The silence on the other end was telling. "Elena," the woman whispered, "that wasn't an agency. It was a referral from a contact, an underground placement. I was desperate to help you. I thought the child had been abandoned. We never questioned it." Elena's throat went dry. "You mean she was never legally registered?" "She disappeared from a private hospital. That's all I know." Elena hung up and stared at the wall. The cracks in her understanding deepened, spreading like fractures across glass. If Maya had disappeared from a hospital, whose child had she been? When Graham called and asked to meet at the Reynolds Memorial Garden, Elena already knew. She didn't tell Maya where she was going, just said she had errands, her voice stiff and unfamiliar. The fountain gurgled quietly as she approached. Graham stood beside a marble plaque, his hands in his coat pockets, his face unreadable. "You ran the test," she said. He didn't answer, just handed her the folded document. She read it once, then again. Her hands shook. "I knew something was off," she whispered, "but I didn't want to believe it." "I didn't want to believe it either," Graham said, "but the proof is there. My Maya." Eleanor's voice cracked. "She's your Emily?" Graham hesitated. "Yes." The word rang like a verdict. Elena turned away, eyes burning. "Do you know what you've done?" "I didn't plan this." "No," she snapped, "but you dug. You tested her without asking, and now you've cracked open a truth I can't unknow. She's my daughter, Elena." "She's my daughter," Elena shouted. "I raised her. I held her when she had fevers. I walked her to preschool. I taught her to spell her name." Graham stepped forward, voice low. "And I lost her. I buried her." or thought I did, and now I know she's alive, and the world won't let me pretend otherwise." Eleanor stared at him, something between rage and grief twisting in her chest. "You should have come to me first. I didn't want to take her from you," he said. "I just needed to know." "Well, now you know," Elena whispered, "and I don't know anything anymore." She turned and walked away, the document still clenched in her fist, her whole world crumbling. Back at the apartment, Elena tried to act normal. She made dinner, helped Maya with her spelling words, and tucked her in with a kiss on the forehead. But inside, she was unraveling. She watched Maya sleep, those hazel eyes, those curls, the soft snore she always made just before midnight. She remembered the night Maya had arrived in her arms, a friend of a friend, a rushed call, no questions asked. The baby had been wrapped in a hospital blanket, a birth bracelet missing. Elena had thought she was saving her, but maybe she had only been hiding her. Graham stood in his daughter's old room. It hadn't changed in 10 years. The paint had faded. The toys were still arranged as they were on the day Emily vanished. He knelt beside the tiny bookshelf and pulled out a tattered children's book. Inside the cover was Emily's scribbled, "A name." He opened a drawer and found the butterfly hair clip she had worn the week before the hospital transfer. His chest ached. He pulled out a sheet of paper, trembling, and wrote, "To Maya, my daughter, I don't want to replace what you have. I only want to be allowed to know you, to watch you grow, to offer something if you want it. Your mother is extraordinary. She's given you everything I couldn't. If there is room in your heart for 2 truths, I hope I can be one of them. Graham." Then he wrote another letter, this one to Elena. He didn't ask for custody. He didn't make demands. He simply asked to be part of the story, not as a rescuer, not as a billionaire, but as a father who'd been given a second chance. Elena stood outside James Abbott's corner office, clutching the envelope Graham had given her. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with fire. Answers. She needed answers. The receptionist barely had time to greet her before James himself stepped out, startled. "Miss Elridge, I wasn't expecting you." "I need the truth," Elena said, "now." Inside, the office was sleek, glass-lined, and clinical. James motioned to a chair. Elena stayed standing. "Tell me everything," she said, "legally, ethically. How did my daughter become your clients?" James sighed, leaning forward. "We've been reviewing the original hospital files. There's something you should see." He pulled up a series of old scanned documents. One in particular made Elena's stomach lurch. A falsified death certificate. No attending physician listed, no signature. The private clinic, now shuttered, had apparently lost the body. "Elena," James said, voice low, "we believe Maya was trafficked during a hospital transfer. The network used falsified adoptions and under-the-table handoffs." Elena covered her mouth. "She was stolen," she whispered. James nodded grimly. "Yes, and you, unknowingly, became part of it." The walk back to Riverside Heights felt different that day. The peeling walls and uneven steps of the building seemed heavier. As Elena entered their apartment, she was struck by how many little things she'd added to make it feel like home. Pillows, drawings, chipped ceramic animals on the shelf. Maya had filled every inch of this place with color. She sat at the table and traced the rim of Maya's favorite cup, one with faded rocket ships, and remembered the day Maya came to her, a rainy night, a baby wrapped in a towel, no paperwork, just a whispered assurance. She's been abandoned. They don't want her. You can save her. She'd believed it because she needed to. Elena pulled open a drawer where she kept the few mementos from that time. A pacifier, a sock, a bracelet she'd found later with half the letters worn off. She looked at the bracelet now, and for the first time, she saw it differently. Not a gift, a clue. Eleanor didn't realize Maya was home early. She'd forgotten it was a half day. She didn't hear the front door open or the light footsteps as Maya padded down the hall, but she did hear her daughter's voice, small and scared, from behind her. "Mom?" Elena turned quickly, wiping her face. Maya stood there, her backpack slipping off one shoulder. "Why were you crying?" Elena hesitated, then tried to smile. Just tired, sweetheart. I heard you talking to Mr. Abbott on the phone. Maya looked down. He said I wasn't yours. Elena's heart shattered in two. Oh, baby. She knelt and took Maya's hands in hers. That's not true. You are mine. Mine. You'll always be. I had another mom? Maya asked quietly. Before. Elena closed her eyes. Yes, but she died, and you were taken away before anyone could stop it. I didn't know, Maya. I thought you had no one. I was told you needed a home. Maya's voice trembled. So, Mr. Whitlock is my dad? Elena nodded slowly. Maya sat down on the couch, legs dangling, her eyes too big for her face. Do I have to leave? No, Elena said fiercely, sitting beside her. No one's taking you anywhere. My daughter. Still, nothing will change that. Then I want to stay here, Maya said, her voice small. I want things to stay the same. Elena held her close, rocking gently. Some things might change, but the important parts, us, that's forever. Later that night, Maya sat quietly at the kitchen table, her plate of macaroni and cheese untouched. Elena watched her for a long moment, then said softly, You don't have to be afraid, Maya. I'm not afraid, Maya replied. I'm just wondering. About what? Maya looked up, her eyes glossy. Do you think he loved me when I was a baby? Elena swallowed the lump in her throat. Yes, I think he still does. Then why didn't he come find me sooner? Elena walked over and knelt beside her. Because he thought you were gone. People told him lies. He's been hurting for a long time. Maya traced a finger through the cheese on her plate. He's nice. But I don't want a new dad. You don't have to have one, Elena said. You're allowed to feel however you feel. But would you be okay if he was just someone who cared about you? Maya considered that. Like a friend. Exactly. Maya smiled a little. I guess I could have two homes, like some of my friends at school. Elena kissed her forehead. As long as you always know where your heart lives. With you, Maya said, without hesitation. Always. Elena requested the meeting. This time, they didn't meet at the garden or his penthouse. They met at the old park on Bridgeview Avenue, neutral ground. Maya sat nearby, feeding pigeons. Elena and Graham sat on opposite ends of a bench, silent for a long moment. She knows, Elena said at last. Everything, Graham nodded. And she wants you in her life, but on her terms. No cameras, no spotlight. Of course. Eleanor exhaled slowly. I've thought a lot about this, Graham. What this means for her, for us. She deserves a full truth, but not a torn life. I'm not going to give her up. I can't. I'm not asking you to, said quietly. I don't want to undo what you've given her. I just want to be allowed to give her something too. Eleanor looked at him. So what do? We build a bridge, he said. One step at a time. She smiled faintly. Co-parenting? Let's call it co-loving, he said. She's earned that much. Maya turned from the pigeons then and ran back toward them, beaming. Look, one landed on my hand. They both stood as she barreled into Elena's arms, then looked up at Graham and offered him her other hand. He took it, slowly, reverently, as if touching a fragile miracle, and just like that, the bridge between their lives became real, not perfect, not simple, but finally shared. Sunlight spilled through the windows of the new apartment in Brookhaven Heights, a modest but bright three-bedroom with potted herbs lining the balcony and Maya's latest art hanging proudly on the walls. Laughter echoed from the living room as Maya turned 8. She wore a yellow dress with sunflowers and a handmade crown of construction paper. Her two worlds, once separate, were now side by side. Her friends from Westbrook Academy, Mrs. Blackwell standing by the snack table, and Graham and Elena seated across from one another with quiet familiarity. Okay, Maya said, grinning at her birthday cake. 3 wishes this time. You only get 1, Elena teased. Not today, Graham added with a wink. Today, she gets 3. Maya closed her eyes. When she opened them, she blew out every candle in one breath. Elena caught the way Graham looked at Maya. Tender, proud, still a little awestruck, and she realized something. It no longer hurt to see that. It felt Right, because they weren't sharing Maya out of obligation anymore. They were raising her together. A month later, the ribbon was cut on the new facility, the Emily and Maya Center for Pediatric Diagnosis. The building shimmered with glass and color, walls painted in soft pastels, windows wide open to natural light, waiting rooms that looked more like playrooms. Graham walked the halls slowly, nodding to doctors and nurses. He stopped before a mural in the lobby, a vibrant painting of a little girl handing a sandwich to a man on a park bench. Above them, stars. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he turned to Elena, standing beside him in her tailored foundation blazer. "I was wrong," he said. She looked over. "About what?" "I thought I'd lost everything when Emily died. But the truth is, I still had something to give. I just needed someone to show me how." Elena folded her arms gently. And she did. She did. They walked the corridor in silence, passing a windowed room where a toddler sat on her mother's lap, waiting to be seen. Early diagnosis, early treatment, early hope. The work mattered, and it would outlive them both. The auditorium buzzed with energy. Families, donors, reporters, and doctors all gathered for the center's opening gala. The crowd hushed as a small voice approached the podium. Maya, now, tall enough to stand alone behind the microphone, adjusted her note cards with quiet confidence. "When I was 7, she began, "I gave my sandwich to someone who looked hungry. I didn't know he was rich. I didn't know he was my dad. I just knew he looked sad." The audience chuckled softly, but that sandwich, it changed everything. Not because it was special, but because I shared it. She looked toward the front row where Graham and Eleanor sat side by side. "People say kids can't change the world, but I think we can. One kind thing at a time." The audience stood in applause. Graham wiped a tear. Elena squeezed his hand, and Maya beamed. No longer a girl lost in between lives, but a child who had built something lasting from a single act of grace. Weeks later, Eleanor sat across from James Avitt in the Foundation boardroom. "Are you sure about this?" James asked. "I am." He slid the contract across the table. "Director of Community Health Strategy, National Division. You'll oversee initiatives across 6 states. Graham offered travel accommodations, housing flexibility, and full autonomy." Elena signed. She was no longer the nurse struggling through 12-hour ER shifts. She was a leader now, a voice for the unseen. After the meeting, she called Graham. "She said yes?" he asked, pleased. "She did," Elena replied. "And Maya, she's thrilled, as long as she still gets weekends with Dad, the ice cream boss." Graham laughed. "Fair. And," Elena added, "Jessica Chen has agreed to move in while I travel. She and Maya have a good rhythm. It feels right." There was a pause. "Eleanor," he said, "thank you for trusting me, for letting me be part of her world." "You're not part of it," she replied. "You're family." That evening, the 3 of them visited the Reynolds Memorial Garden, the place where truth first shattered and later stitched itself back together. Maya sat between Elena and Graham on the fountain's edge, kicking her legs lightly above the pebbled path. "You know what I've been thinking about?" she asked. "What?" Elena asked. "That sandwich." Graham smiled. "Me too." Maya turned toward him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't given it to you?" "I do," he said softly. "And I think I'd still be sitting on that bench." Maya leaned against his side. "But I did. And you weren't scary. You just looked cold." Elena watched them, her heart full and tender. Maya looked at both of them. "I don't remember my other mum, but I don't feel like I'm missing anything. Is that okay?" Eleanor tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's more than okay. You're made of love," Graham added. "From both lives." Maya looked up at the stars above them. "Maybe sandwiches are kind of magic." Elena laughed. "The best ones are." They sat in the stillness of the evening, no longer fractured, no longer afraid, just 3 souls, bound by truth, shaped by loss, and walking forward together. And from a single act of kindness, a legacy had grown, one that would ripple far beyond them. What if a simple sandwich held the power to rewrite destiny? In the bread that built a bridge, A child's innocent act of compassion unearths a hidden identity, exposes a decades-old child trafficking ring, and leads to an emotional reunion that no one could have predicted. But here's the real question. If you discovered the child you raised wasn't biologically yours, but loved you as her mother, what would you do? And if you were the real parent, would you step in or step back? Tell us in the comments, what matters more, blood or bond? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more powerful, emotional narratives like this one. Share this video with someone who still believes in second chances and in the quiet miracles that kindness can create. The smallest gesture, after all, might just become the bridge between two lives, or save one entirely.